Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I am your host, Samuel, and this is going to be part 2 with Andrie Leday. You heard part 1 last week. This is the continuation of that interview. This is an important interview. You know, not only does Andrie talk about his space in robotics, he talks about words of wisdom for sales reps, sales leaders, and people that want to get into the industry. We also tackle some really important issues. We literally talk about the murder of George Floyd. We talk about the DEI space, and we talk about the things he's been doing as a pioneer in the industry within his company, really leading the way and making sure that people that are performing, opportunities are there, and for them to jump into those opportunities and truly succeed in underrepresented communities. It's a great episode. It's an episode that I believe everyone should hear. And I'll go ahead and say this. Andrie is a straight-laced guy. He gives it to you straight. He tells you exactly how it is. You'll even catch that when you see my discussion with him in the interview. And it's refreshing, and I appreciate it. So, as always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I really do hope you enjoyed this interview. And that actually is a great segue into what I want to ask you about now. So, actually, let's jump into what you did in robotics first, and then we'll get into the segue I want to jump into. So you went from area vice president, you went from marketing development to area vice president. So you were just making things happen very fast. And then you went into director of robotic therapies. One thing I just want to put out there right now is, like I said, there's all kinds of listeners listening. There are a subset of people that just don't understand robotics at all. Can you just kind of clean that up in a general sense of what robotics actually is? And then we'll continue.
So there's a difference between robotics and a robot. So in the robotics space, it's basically an automated system, which is a tool or resource for a human to use to bring about or substitute a movement that would otherwise be done by that human. And sure. So within the surgical robotics space, our system, in particular the Mazor X Stealth Edition, is used by surgeons to give them strategic guidance to the proper or optimal position for a surgical plan. And so there's a pre-plan that the surgeon does that's loaded into our navigation of our robot that then allows the robot to put itself in the right angle, the right position, and for the surgeon gives them peace of mind that where they're putting their pedicle screws or hardware is exactly where they plan to do it initially.
Got it. Okay.
Now there's an evolution.
Okay.
As these systems gain more trust, gain more data, I think the goal for any and most of these systems is to see them move from more robotic to more robot, which a robot is more self-driven through AI and other initiatives, and becomes more proficient at delivering some of those outcomes.
Got it. And gosh, we'll get into this, but I'm sure you've seen the evolution of evolutions. I mean, from when you started to today, I'm sure you've seen a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, the segue I was talking about. So, you're now at a higher level of leadership. You talked about being an African American and rising the ranks and limited opportunities. How did that play into your managing style, your interviewing style? I mean, talk to us a little bit about how that played into your leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing is it became imperative for me to look at being not just a diversity leader for African Americans, right, but being very, very agnostic in my view of making sure that I am shepherding diversity and innovation for diversity throughout the organization. So I made sure I got myself involved in the Medtronic, women's network. I got myself involved in our Medtronic Asians in Medtronic organization, all these different opportunities such that I can better understand what the potential challenges, but also the talents within different unique affinity workspaces within Medtronic so that I can be a better servant of that. But, that doesn't take a back burner to my commitment to the, African descent network and African descent community within Medtronic, but it rides in strong parallel as a leader. That's what I'm called upon to do. And so in understanding that we had a drastic underrepresentation of Asians in our sales organization and customer facing roles in Medtronic, that helps me to be more alert for looking for said talent. And when I see it, how do I support it? How do I help it move forward? Women, who are in an opportunity, how do I make sure that I'm supporting, again, in a crowded room of men like myself, their voices and their contributions so that, again, we get the best out of our leadership group.
I love it. So, in the past, 2 years, diversity and inclusion has become a hotter topic than ever. I mean, it's really exploded ever since the George Floyd incident. It's really exploded and really become front line for so many different corporations, including healthcare. When you say that, you've always been thinking this way very early on, back in 2010, when you were, director of robotic therapy, how did your initiatives in wanting to really drive leadership forward with making more opportunities for minorities, how did that influence the company? And would you say that Medtronic kind of went in that direction and has always been a part of what we're seeing today, or not so much?
Yeah, great question. I will absolutely give a ton of credit to Dr. Sally Saba, who has recently joined our organization from the legacy group there in California under Bernard Tyson and team. And so when Sally joined our team, she put a big mirror in front of us through work with other groups to help come in and speak to our leadership. And some of the things we were doing really well were the fact that we were supporting with resources and talk points from a leadership realm that we wanted to see these things happen, especially start from the base level and be organic as they grew in our company. What we weren't doing is necessarily owning that action from the top down. And so that's one of the things that I would say with the robotic opportunity, I really saw as an opportunity, not just myself, but Carlton Weatherby, who was the VP at the time over our surgical synergy group and robotics. We both said, this is a new space.
Right.
This is a new experience. So why does it necessarily need to be predestined to look the same way as the rest of our businesses? Why can't we start with the end in mind and be more diverse from the onset and build this thing the right way? And so I'm really, really proud to say that organization was probably before it morphed into the rest of the organization through reorgs, one of the most diverse and most highly regarded groups within Medtronic. And so, I know when I left my district manager role and joined diabetes at the time, my team was more than 58% diverse from zero. I was the diversity when I came into Texas, and we grew from 7 members to 16 members with over 56% diversity, whether it be veterans, women, Blacks, Hispanics. We were diverse across the board, and so that's one of the things again that I just try to make sure that I inspect what I expect. So as my people leaders are putting together candidate slates, do we even have a diverse slate to consider? Mm-hmm. Are the people interviewing that candidate within the panel, are they also of different walks of life and different experiences, such that, again, we've got different eyes looking at this same information and coming up with the best answer? Got
it. And you'd agree that it's even become more of a frontline issue in the last 2 years?
Easily. Again, the murder of George Floyd, and I'm going to call it exactly what it is. Some people dance around that and call it the death. It's the murder of George Floyd. Absolutely opened the eyes for not just day-to-day life in America, but corporate America life. Yeah. And I can tell you, I had several leaders who thoughtfully, called me, senior leaders and executives, asking me, how am I doing? What am I taking of all this? What am I thinking? And while I appreciated everyone for calling and expressing concern for me, I used it as a call to action. Like, what are you going to do different?
Wow!
I need you to behave different. I'm going to continue to behave this way. This is sadly something captured on camera, but this is the feelings and the energy that led to those officers treating Mr. Floyd that way inhumanely until they snuffed out his life. Maybe not to that degree, but that energy of not seeing someone as the same, it's still pervasive throughout corporate America. So what are you going to do? And I'm going to ask you that the next time I see you. I know you're asking how I'm doing. I'm going to ask you what you're doing. And so those are some of the conversations we've had. And through that, I've had a chance to lead Medtronic's global initiative on being an inclusive leader and that series. And we've brought in outside groups to help facilitate that training,
Nice.
which it's now part of our conversation in DNA. And we're sourcing through really amazing groups like National Sales Network, who work hand in hand with the African American and diverse communities across the U.S. for sales. And I know my region alone, we've had a chance to hire 2 NSN candidates over the last 3 weeks alone. Right. And so just doing more of those things and making it purposeful, I think, is what we're seeing.
I love it. Man, you are just making things happen out there, Andre.
I'm in the right place to be able to do those things. Medtronic's a special place, and I appreciate it. Amen
to that. Okay, so now I want to get into different levels of leadership. So you were a director of robotic therapies, and then you became the vice president in the Texas, Oklahoma region. Talk to us a little bit about what that transition was like. What are the stark differences there?
I'll say this. In robotic therapies, I didn't have direct reports. I worked specifically with one of the largest IDNs in America and their executive leadership team to help bring about more programmatic success. And some of the things I did was to challenge them on things they were doing to support these veterans. They spent millions of dollars on robots. But how is there no pull through on the other side? We had no measure of what good looks like. I'm like, well, what goal are we aiming for? There was no agreement on that. Yeah. So I used that experience when I came into this role within Texas to say, okay, what does good look like? Are we all in agreement that this is the market share we should strive to, and we should be taking steps there? This is not good enough, even though someone's telling us they're giving us all we've got. And if that's all they've got, what else do we need to go and get to subsidize what we've already got? And so that type of opportunity and eyes wide open approach, I think really helped me. And the success that we saw within the space I was in by supporting it, even just at a strategic level, was a 38% increase in utilization for that particular group with their robotics. And so they were happy. That helped me have some receipts, right, and credibility when I came into this space, which also is a very large robotic market. And of course, those folks now on the robotic team report up through my organization as well.
Excellent. So then when it comes to performing let's go even before that. When it comes to just getting into this space, what are your, I'll keep it easy. Give us two things you'd advise anyone listening to this episode and thinking, wow, I want to be in that role. I want to do something like this. What would you advise them to do going into the interviewing process?
Such a great question. I would say first thing is you got to separate yourself before it even begins. And so if you're going to write to myself or any other leaders in some of these spaces that have an opportunity, within their teams, I think it's unimpactful to come in and say, I'd love to talk about opportunities at your company. I hear that one a lot. And given the fact that my most valuable currency is time, yep. I'm looking for the person that says, instead of that, I'd like to talk to you, Mr. Leday, about robotics. I couldn't help but notice that you guys had the most recent advent of your release of the Midas for Mazur drill system. I'd like to understand how that's impacting your business and what do you see for the future? You looked up something simple on the internet to make your request more impactful.
Yes.
And so those are the simple things that I think can help get you an audience. And then once you get that audience, again, doing your homework and coming in with more than and I just had this conversation prior to this with someone else for career development. In interviews and interactions, oftentimes we spend probably 80-90% of the interview talking about what we've done in the past. Mm-hmm. Your resume did that in large part. Right. You may add context to it in the interviews, but that should only be roughly 40%. Right. For the other 50%, I'd love for you to share with me what you're going to do with this role. With the limited information you've received, I want to know what you're going to do with this role. What are your plans? What are you excited about? And then the last 10 minutes are your really educated questions through your knowledge and exploration for knowledge that still remain open, that you want to ask, that show that you have a comprehension of the challenge at hand, but also you're thinking ahead in what you're going to provide. That's that 100% mark that I would say. Don't spend too much time in the past because it makes it hard for them to look forward to you in the future. You really have to separate yourself.
So, what I want to know from you, Andre, how do you feel about the services that are provided to help professionals that want to get into the industry? How do you feel about those kind of services?
Yeah, Samuel, first of all, I think it's always very compelling when I see someone invest in themselves to better themselves as a potential candidate, and to see that they're very self-aware of what they're lacking and seek out the resolution. And so, opportunities to, possibly be a part of, medical sales career builder programs and work with, Evolve Your Success and programs like yours. I think those are highly value added. And so, that's something that helps to separate, candidates who, may come in and also have limited experience, but what are they doing to bridge that gap? And so, programs like yours, and I think others, are value added.
I love it. That I hope people are taking notes. All right. So, and let's talk about the person that's a new sales professional. You're an associate sales rep and you really just want to blow it out of the water. Another two things, what would you advise them to do?
Do the simple things, humble yourself. Whether it's, I used to tell people all the time, whether it's carrying a pail of water, whether it's moving a tray, whether it's, you want to be visible, but you don't want to be a nuisance. So it's appropriate to stand in a room and sometimes not say a word, but be ready for a question that comes your way. And that's oftentimes in neurosurgery for, let's say a third ventriculoscopy, and it's in a very difficult space. It could be a 6 or 8 hour procedure. You may not say a word, but you need to be ready to say something if need be. And also be a part of the solutions for those you work with, whether it be the OR staff. If they're asking, they used to ask me about surgical instruments I didn't sell, but I'd go find out who sold it. And I'd find a contact number for them, and I'd do the warm handoff to make sure that request was taken care of for my customer and make sure that they followed up, because that was the value that I could provide, is taking something off their plate. For my fellow spine, members in Colorado, if I saw Surgeon X, who was their surgeon, working at another hospital with another rep, I'm telling them what kind of case it was, and that I saw Dr. So-and-so over there. Do they need me to find out any other information while I'm there? I would, always, just make sure I'm a part of that team in whatever capacity. And oftentimes they tell me, oh, he or she does that. They do those procedures with them. It's okay. Or, hey, thanks for following up. I'll go to their office tomorrow and make sure that we show them X, Y, and Z, product, which, is like the product that they were using from a competitor. So
wonderful. Okay. And then from a leadership perspective, again, for those that are new to leadership, a new manager, or maybe even a new director, what are two things that you would advise that they definitely take heed and do?
Well, the first thing is I'll recommend a reading. It's called The Leadership Pipeline.
Okay.
It's an excellent book that really identifies for you the different behaviors at different levels of leadership. And sometimes in our mind, we think, I'll just do the same thing I did at the level before and be effective because it worked for me before. But there are some things that as we move up and move into different roles, we need to let go of. We need to delegate that more instead of handling that personally, so that we can be more available for other strategic things that we're called upon to do to be more effective leaders, especially shepherds of all this new cultural change that we're trying to achieve. And so that's number one. I recommend that reading. Number two, where possible, I always tell people, find your opportunities for greatness with your high pose and your direct reports. And so, at my level, if somebody brings something to me, sometimes I'm not able to do anything about the challenge before them, and I can just, try to soothe their feelings. But if there really is something that pops up, and you have an opportunity to act and deliver this very unusually positive result for them that they didn't expect to happen, that's an opportunity for greatness. And that gives you an opportunity as a leader to show up differently in their mind, whether that be labs are on Saturday mornings at times, and that's time away from your family, but you're there at 7:30 in the morning right alongside them. to greet surgeons and make that personal exchange and thank them for their commitment and sacrifice away from their families, or could be $1 million deal with the military that we, may need to, beg, borrow, and steal from other regions to fulfill it. But, if that gets fulfilled and it drives the success with a key, government customer, that we're having that conversation on their behalf and delivering that result for them. Those are things that I think, again, can really show people that you care. And then two, when the time comes for them to run through a wall for you, they'll do it.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So let's switch gears a little bit here. 4 kids. So you have quite a personal life. One thing that we talk about when it comes to having a position in medical sales is how to get that work-life balance, especially when it's, pharma has its demands too, but it's much more pronounced, as you pointed out, in medical device sales, especially if an OR role where it's, like trauma or something like neurosurgery, where you kind of have to be available and ready. And you were doing an extremely demanding role, and you were making it happen with all these little ones to manage. So talk to us about how did you really, what are some pearls someone can take away from that, who wants to develop a family or is thinking about really, maybe they're thinking about changing fields because they think they can't. What would you say to any of that?
Yeah, it's funny. So my wife, Brandy, has been my partner in crime for such a long time. And so communication has to be high. There's times when, you get so busy, you're so tired at the end of the day, you want to just shut down. Mm-hmm. And I would caution folks from doing that. Now, you want to be measured in the amount of download you give. You don't want, to take work home completely, but you do want to share certain things so that people understand why you're sacrificing, what you're doing. And, I can tell you, when I was in the midst of the associate role and the pay cut, my wife was like, I just got to tell you, this is the worst job you ever took. I'm just going to let you know, this is the worst one. I don't know what's going on. But as soon as the commission side kicked in and they allowed me to earn commission, we tripled what I made as a DM in the first year.
So she saw the light.
She was good there. But I will say, as far as the work-life balance, it's really important to understand quality of time versus quantity of time at times, and be very, very mindful of that. And so with each of my 4 kids, my wife is really great about the things that are critical that are coming up in their life. She will help coordinate and put that in my calendar. It's not something I'm going to forget, and if I'm coming, home and I'm, hot off the plane, I'll jump in the shower because I before COVID, I've always been a germ guy. So jump in the shower, but she'll have the clothes ready for me to jump into, to hit fast forward and get back into family life. And so she's just really great about that, and making sure that, I'm still connected to the kids and opportunities very deliberately, and date night, we still try to make those, where we can squeeze those in. Those are important. That's it, man. And so that's, I think that's the recipe. And again, realizing that the achievements in my career are a reflection of her commitment as well as my commitment. So I try to make sure, that's another leadership tip I'm going to give. Mm-hmm. Recognition is an unlimited supply of currency that we often underspend. And I don't understand at times where it's easy to take a look at me thing. And we think we have to do that at times for advancement in a very crowded space. But, recognition is just something that it spreads thick, it spreads wide, and it always pays back. And so, again, I'll say that I share all of my success with her and my Heavenly Father. So
that's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. All right, a few last things before we close it up. So your own, I don't know, what would you call it? Your own routine. Give us through, if you have one, right? And I want to believe that you do. So give us the routine. Is it 5 a.m. and then the gym and then, the morning devotional and then, the kids, or what happens? Give us your routine, how you get through the day. How do you make this all happen?
Yeah. So sometimes the day takes me there first, but generally speaking, I try to be up no later than at least like 6:15.
Okay.
And it's funny. My body's hardwired that way from all the flights and early flights and things. And sometimes I'll wake up at 5:45, but 6:15, I roll out of bed and, try to get a quick workout, well noted there, because the day gets away from you. And it's just a way for me to just decompress and reset my body. And so I'll get a quick workout in, and then usually I'll get my first cup of coffee, for the day. I say first because sometimes it can be 2 or 3. We could do better at that. Right. But I'll sit down and just really. I have a whiteboard, which you can't see with my virtual background, but I have a whiteboard, and I'll prioritize or look at my priorities from the previous day that either I didn't get to or that take precedent for the day. And so I'll start to chime out and work through those things to make sure I get some of those milestones done and get those deliverables done. Then I'll really sit down and just dive into taking care of the fires that have come through email from my team. And you don't start the day with those because they can consume you. So I try to get some of those other priorities done first, take care of the fires. Make a few phone calls. Usually Zoom's come to me on that instance. My administrator is really great on keeping me in as short as possible, but more effective with my time. I will say, though, from a weekly standpoint, one of the things that's most impactful for me is on Sunday afternoons, I typically do a lot of my journal reading. And so I'm reading about other technologies, I'm reading about other industries, and I'm educating myself to be a little more well-rounded on the things that are going on in the world around me, whether it be new processes, new procedures, new competitors, you name it. I'm a student of all, but I have some very special tricks that I use to learn where my competitors are weak in coverage in certain areas, but I'm keeping that to myself. I'm all over it. I'm about that competition. I'm about that action. And I think, again, that allows me to be more effective as a leader for my team by, just feeding myself with knowledge and being a student of knowledge. So
that's excellent. That is excellent. Any last, any core philosophy or last words you'd like to share with our audience today, Andrie?
Sure. I'll just tell you, I'm absolutely in love with the leadership opportunity that I'm in now. And as I aspire to do more things in a more macro level with leadership, one of the things that I take to heart is this opportunity that I have as a leader to impact not just patients, but impact the lives exponentially of the people that I hire or that are on my team that hire those people. And so creating this environment of equality, creating this diverse landscape that is so necessary in healthcare as we challenge ourselves to address healthcare disparities at the just most microscopic level. This is an opportunity for us to make that landscape a little more normal, a little less disruptive, by making sure we make these decisions each and every day so that people, after a while, it's not something new. It's not something different. It's just the way it is. And so I take that charge very seriously, and I look for those people with that hunger to do those things, who can rise to the challenging occasions, who have the thick skin to get through some of the days that are going to be tough, and really just take a lot of pride in providing that opportunity, because I know the exponential impact it's going to have for that diverse family, whether they be LGBTQ, whether they be Native American, whether they be a disabled veteran. I know, and also for Black and Hispanic and Asian employees, I know the exponential difference that this job and opportunity can have, because it's had that for me. Yeah. My life and my children's lives will forever be changed by this amazing honor that I've been bestowed. And so I look forward to the opportunities to pay all those back in droves.
Beautiful. Andrie, I have to say it was a pleasure to get this time with you today. I'm sure the audience feels exactly the same. Thank you so much. Keep doing your thing. Go out there and continue to be great and inspiring as you do. And, we look forward to catching up with you in the future and hearing more of the great things you've done.
Well, Samuel, I really appreciate the honor to speak with your audience today and wish you all continued success as well.
Definitely. I love listening to Andrie. He tells it as he sees it. We talked about some hard-hitting events in that episode, from the George Floyd murder to really, really leading the way and helping underrepresented communities get the positions they deserve in the largest companies in the world. And Andrie is leading the charge at Medtronic, and it's just wonderful to hear. We also got some words of wisdom, whether you're a sales rep trying to get into the industry or a sales leader. Andrie had something to share. And for all of you that didn't know, you learned a little bit more about what robotics actually means. So what I want to talk about now is, I know that there's all kinds of people listening to this episode right now. And some of you are actually thinking about getting into the industry. You're thinking about medical device sales. You might even be thinking about pharmaceutical sales, or you're thinking about some kind of healthcare related sale. You're telling yourself, how do I make this happen? Maybe you've been trying to apply online. It just hasn't been happening. Maybe you've been getting interviews, but for whatever reason, you really can't get past the first or second round. And you're beside yourself now and you're saying, what do I need to do to make this happen? How do I get into this role? I want you to visit evolveyoursuccess.com, and I want you to select Attain a Medical Sales Role, fill out our application, and schedule some time with us. And let's have a conversation. Whether it's me or someone from our staff here at Evolve Your Success, we're going to have a conversation with you about what you're trying to do in your role, what's stopping you, or what you're trying to do transition to this industry, what's stopping you, and some actual changes you can make that can get you in front of the opportunity. And you might even have a bigger opportunity with our program that has had so much success in getting people positions in medical sales. So again, go to evolveyoursuccess.com, select Attain a Medical Sales Role, and let us help you. And if you're a sales rep out there, or you're a sales leader, and you've noticed that a lot is happening on social media, a lot of headway is being made on social media, and people are selling on social media, people are really branding themselves, they're becoming thought leaders, they're creating opportunities that you didn't even know existed, and you're asking, how do I do this? I actually want to be a part of this. I want to get some different opportunities. I want to really expose my brand. I want to be able to sell through social media. Then again, go to evolveyoursuccess.com, select Improve Sales Performance, and click the LinkedIn Training Program. And you're going to be able to schedule a call, and we're going to have a conversation about how we can transform your business, transform your brand, and truly give you some presence and give you some headway, and demystify this whole thing around social media selling. As always, I am so appreciative of everyone that listens to the Medical Sales Podcast. So keep on listening. And one more thing I want to add. I want you to think about what you're doing in your life right now. And this applies to everyone, not just sales reps, not just sales leaders, not just people that want to get into the industry, but everyone, because everyone has to deal with finances. It's in everyone's life, no matter what you're doing. And there is a guest that we had, Chris Larson, who, he began his career in medical device sales at 25, but his true path to financial freedom was through real estate investing. And while spending days in the OR was lucrative for him, it also kept him away from being the best father and husband that he really wanted to be. And during his 18-year career, he created enough passive income, get this, that he was able to walk away from a $300,000 per year role to spend more time with his family. Now his goal is to help others achieve financial freedom as well. And you know what? With that being said, I'm also talking about myself. I also work with Chris in this space with finances. He helps me. So if you'd like to learn his secrets and how you can become financially independent, then you have to get a copy of his book at nextlevelincome.com/book. That's nextlevelincome.com/book. Chris is the real deal. I mean, think about that, right? To be able to walk away from a $300,000 a year business and to do your own, because he's doing so well and he's helping so many people, and they see the value, and people are coming from his own customer base that he had to his colleagues to people like myself. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? With what Chris is doing, it allows people to become truly financially independent, and it's definitely worth looking into. I read his book. I've read it, 3 or 4 times now. It's such an easy read, and it's so valuable, and you learn so much, and everyone's on board. So again, if you have money to invest, or you're just curious and you're thinking, what do I got to do? How do I even tackle this real estate investing that I keep hearing about? Then this is the man you need to do it with. Again, the book is nextlevelincome.com/book. So as always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, and make sure you tune in next week for another episode. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.